Beautiful friends, welcome to this magical conversation with my dear friend Garnet from VIZR, who I admire and appreciate so much. We've come close together throughout this journey. And today is really about what is VIZR, what is light therapy, and who are you, magical human that is coming to this world?
I'm just working at being a good guy. Let's just start there, okay? Of course, I'm very comfortably fond of you. I admire and respect what you're doing and what your team is doing. So to have the chance to do some things with you, I feel is my great good fortune. So thank you, Pavel.
Thank you as well. So for those of you, you guys are seeing this light therapy, and we've been bringing it to the market for the past, month or so. And essentially, so I'm 250 sessions deep. It's made such a huge impact. I literally wake up in the morning. It's the first part of my morning routine. And of course, I stack it with, breath work. And as you know, we don't have any products that we fully don't utilize. They're, all part of our consciousness expansion. And so, Garnet, where did this whole idea come from? And if you can also share a little bit about yourself.
Me, Canadian-born farm boy, have always been motivated from my earliest memories by what we'll call the mysterious or the divine or cosmic, or I don't know what to call it. It's always been there. I'm older now, and it's the only thing, honestly, that's been consistent in my life. I practice under traditional spiritual traditions. I'm a little bit conservative like that. First with an Indian guru and then a Korean Taoist, but I've spent the last 25 years or so with a Tibetan Dzogchen teacher. So this stuff is the most important aspect of my personal life. And because of that, I've always spent time trying on the business side to stay true to that. Right now, it's my impression, I'll make it short, it's my impression that a lot of these traditional techniques and approaches don't work anymore because cultures have changed too much. Most of these traditions require significant time on a daily basis and seasonally, even annually, a lot of time devoted exclusively to the practices to really get what you want to get out of them. So when I look at everything now, it's a little bit risky because many of us are trying to extract the functional elements out of these traditions. What works, what really works. And even though as a traditionalist, I'm conservative, I see that we all need help right now. I won't call them shortcuts because that demeans them, but we need help to do this thing that our heart and soul aches for. We need ways to do it that fit with our current psychology and our social circumstance. So I think technology is a huge benefit in relation to this. Pavel, your work with breathing, with pranayamas, whatever you want to call them, is essential. To me, the number one factor is the ability to harness attention. I think attention is the universal psychoactive agent. After attention, modulating breathing has got to be the number two slot under attention, and then everything else after that will follow. And they get more and more and more complicated sometimes, but they can also be simplistic. So I'm trying to do with light sound technology, I don't know if this is a fair comparison. I'm trying to do with light and sound technology what Pavel is doing with breathing, meaning making it available, making it understandable, making it practical, but also at the same time to make sure that there are actual tangible functional results. Otherwise, it's just another concept. Like we can't just exist on a philosophical level. It's got to be practical. So that's what I'm trying to do. And so far, the VIZR as a technology is proving to be a very good vehicle for it. So that's my little intro. What do you think?
I cannot agree more. So, I think when I first start using it, it's what I love about it is the direct access to presence. And,
Yep.
just like you said, I don't want to call it, hacking or speeding up the process, but in a lot of ways, it's a VIP lane to, to peace, to a calm mind that
Oh,
we all
yeah.
desire.
Okay, so you found me out. I'm trying to trick us all into the present moment, because I think whatever the technique or the manipulation is, the juice is in this. I mean, we call it the present moment. I mean, that's just a metaphor. It's just a metaphor for a certain quality of awareness. So yeah, man, you found me out. All the technology aside, I'm trying to find a way to trick myself and others into the present moment easily, quickly, and reliably. Yeah.
I
All
love
right,
it.
you got me. You got me.
Now, tell us a little bit more. I know you have actually a huge, academic history, and you've done so much in this space. And I think it's important for people to know that, you have this huge foundation.
Well, I entered university. I'm a little older than you, right? I entered university in the late 60s. So somehow I got a degree because most of us never went to class, but I have a lot of education after that. That was like a social cultural education. It's a patchwork. I have different degrees from, different academic sources. Plus I've been in the game for, 55 years now. And
Wow.
so I work a lot with what I'll call predicate science. Um, if a person is inclined to do research, there is an impressive free resource of learning if you're self-motivated. And I've always loved learning my whole life. And I've been a teacher a lot of my life, but it's not about the teaching, it's about the learning. So one is I use a lot of predicate science. And the other is the perspective that what I'll call spiritual practices, I don't even know what to call them anymore, but the spiritual life, the spiritual practices, along with predicate science, and I don't know, I'm just really grateful. I'll say it in this context. I've always been a smart guy, but I'm not this smart. Something is happening, I think maybe to all of us. If we open up the top of our head, stuff is falling from the sky, it feels to me. So just get out a bucket and catch it. So I'll say it this way. I feel an awful lot of my insightful discovery in technology is the direct results of blessings and grace. And I don't know how people relate to those terms, but that's why I say I'm smart. I mean, I've been smart my whole life, but this is weird. I'm not this smart. So I rely on the good grace of the universe as a whole, and maybe some helpers or guides or something. I don't know. I'm not that smart. So,
When was
there's
the
something happening.
Yeah, when was the first insight? So like when did this whole idea came about? And because from our conversations, I mean, light therapy has been around for a very long time, and so has the
Yeah.
science about it. When did that sparkle come to you that this is the way to use it?
Okay, my first memory, because we can all make up stories based on our modifications of the past. But I mentioned university in the late 60s. As any of you know, at least by reputation, sex, drug, rock and roll, it was an extraordinarily creative, adventurous time. And right from the very beginning, admittedly stimulated by psychedelic experiences, I became incredibly fascinated with light and sound. I mean, I had a bag of the early strobe lights and black lights and antique blue light things and everything, because there was just something there, and it aligned with that appetite that I had for the mysterious, for the divine. So I was the guy that would show up in either dorm rooms or off campus, in the houses, the hippie thing that was happening. I was a hippie. And I'd show up with my bag of tricks, and everybody was either thrilled or frightened, because whatever was happening, believe me, the juice went up. So with my first my first guru, Hindu guru, you know, I was asked, would you like to see God face to face? That was the premise. And, you know, it's like, are you kidding? Yes. So it has never, ever changed. Right now, the delight, pardon the pun, the delight is that technology is bringing us to the point now where we can craft and modify light increasingly similar to the way we craft sound. The way that technology, I mean, come on, you know, the first technology for music was, other than the voice itself, was a drum, and it's all technology. And now with electronics, what we can do with sound is insane. We're right at the point now with light that we will be able to use light to express this mind-brain language in a manner that is parallel or similar to sound. So this is a great time. You know, the surf is up. Catch this wave is my suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. What would you say is like the biggest well, the biggest problems that, you know, we're really having, and also how can light support, you know, to solve it essentially?
yeah, well, I pretty much, light is the most evident and dramatic, but to me, light and sound, they're the yin and yang, they're the male, female, they're in love with each other. They always have been. So I kind of see them together. Quickly, our brain, mind, I won't argue that, has a very broad spectrum of normal, natural potential states. And I think right now we are pretty much jammed or stuck, almost imprisoned by a scientific philosophy that only really trusts the rational, logical mind. And this is the first time in human history, I believe, that we've ever looked at consciousness this way. So we have a suspicion, a resistance to what we'll call non-ordinary states. Just because certain states are uncommon does not make them abnormal. More than that, these states are natural, normal aspects of our circadian metabolism. We need to have this broad range of experience. So right now, I think the main problem, even when people get techniques that work given to them, and those techniques don't work, what's going on? I think technically it's called cognitive rigidity. Cognitive rigidity means that the brain activities in terms of frequencies, but you know, the brain activity has been narrowed down to a box that has very tight parameters. And we keep on cycling in this. You know, the way I'll say it is that inevitably you can't think your way out of this problem, but you can feel your way into the solution. Mm-hmm. So I work primarily, not exclusively, but primarily with direct bottom-up stimulation. And the understanding is that, like even a breathing technique for some, or let's say make it more simple, a meditation technique, a simple mindfulness technique. Why doesn't it work for a lot of people? Why is it so hard? It's hard because there's a kind of glue, a neurological cognitive glue that has to be softened before the brain can change and respond to the mindfulness meditation. So it's not as though we start neutral. We're not starting neutral. There are lots of great techniques that people start and stop because they don't work. Why? Because there's, this is the analogy, right? It's not actually glue, but although maybe there's amyloid plaque, I don't know. But the neurological patterns are fixed, or it's called technically cognitive rigidity. And there has to be something that softens the glue so that now these very good techniques that tend to be very simple will actually give you benefit. So what I call it is a brain priming that has to take place, followed by the brain time. Prime and time. You can eat super healthy food, but if your digestion is so weak that you can't break down and assimilate the food, it's not because the food is the wrong choice. is because you can't digest it. So in a way, our brains have a hard time digesting a lot of these super effective traditional techniques because our brain has a problem with digesting stimulation. So what I'm looking at is brains that from the beginning are being limited by urban contemporary lifestyles, as well as a contemporary philosophy that says God is dead, consciousness doesn't exist, you're just a meat suit, you're going to die, end of story. That kind of scientific reductionist logical materialism is not making our brains and minds happy.
Totally. No, that makes sense. And so when you look at it from like the perspective of somebody having anxiety or, I guess I could use myself as an example. Sometimes I wake up in the morning and I'm just like edgy, right? There's overthinking mind. And, the first thing with adrenaline spike happens is like, what is on my agenda? What's going to happen? And I've basically learned
Pavel, that doesn't happen to you, man. Come on. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, with the jam-packed schedule every single day. No, so as soon as that happens, I mean, I literally reach for my VIZR, and essentially I'm starting with the what do you call them, the sessions that help me process beta or dehabituation.
The dehabituators, those are very cool, nasty, wonderful, super functional experiences. 5 minutes, pop the cork, right?
It's incredible though. So like I would do that, and then I choose the next session, which I rewrite what I want to, think or what my state wants to be. And so what actually happens that this, happens?
Yeah, well, it's a new class of techniques as I evolve, because we keep on learning. The increasing evidence of the stuff I've referred to, the glue, the cognitive rigidity, the fixed states. I thought, let's look at what's there, again, in predicate science, what's working. And the realization was that, I need to create these short, intensive kind of scramblers that if you would, because it's pretty easy to recognize which zone you get stuck in, even in, the personal guide, it rolls those out. But so a lot of kids we're like high thinkers, the beta goes, woo. So the idea was to dehabituate this, that you can, it can be done rather successfully and in a very short term, just by having certain signal sets of certain crafting with light and sound, and it blows it out. I'll risk to not be confused here, but that it is a very gentle, highly effective convulsive therapy. Shock therapy? You see it in movies, put the thing on. What are they doing? In that case, it's a massive shotgun. We have kind of a very gentle BB gun with focus, but what they're doing is they're softening the glue. They're breaking apart habituated patterns. Now, if you understand that that's a good thing, and how do we do it? We do it with that kind of session. It's kind of what a kid does when they spin around, like, they're kind of, it's like a reset, actually. It's a kind of a softening of the glue and a real quick reset. There's so much research in AVS, audio visual stimulation. And, I've been involved with it since the earliest days when all the equipment was too expensive and always broke down, always analog, until now. So, yeah, I get it. Predicate science is our real big resource. So for folks that are willing to do the research and recognize what we already know and what things are based on that are practical. We already know it, but maybe we don't have a practical way of introducing it or sharing it. Well, that's the way you can cut corners. Work with what already works, like from the ancient traditions, your pranayamas and different breathing techniques. They've been around, dude. They've really been around. They work. Then we have to style it so it works in our society, in our lifestyle. That's what I'm attempting with light and sound.
Yeah, no, that's magical. And what's interesting is, I mean, I've now placed the device on, I mean, many, many people, and whatever it's
Yeah,
families, friends, or even just people at the events. And it's always the same. It's at first you're like, what is this light thing, right? You have that doubt,
yeah,
and another gadget, another tool, like what is this gonna
yeah,
do? And
yeah.
then, I mean, I have some people that literally they compare it to a psychedelic trip. They compare it to
Absolutely. Yeah,
ayahuasca. And so I think
yeah.
what I would love to learn more is like, what is the best uses and the best, kind of a practices when it comes to this,
Mhm.
and how to properly use it.
Well, okay. It has many uses and applications because of its fundamental simplicity. If it had high complexity, it would be a very narrow corridor of applications. But like with your breathing techniques, like, what are they good for? Well, this is like a lot of things here. So the basic thing to understand, I suppose, with I'll say brain. I don't know brain mind. I give up on that. But brains that are working well seem to have a good mind. So I'll just go with that. That there is the creation of a state and the development of a trait. State is short term, trait long term. To achieve a state, you need the stimulation active and present. Over time, I'll say the brain learns, so you rely less on the active stimulation and more on the habituation and the neuroplasticity change in the brain, so that over time, the trait is not so reliant on the stimulation anymore, because it's like training wheels on a bicycle. In the beginning, you use them so you don't fall down. After time, you don't need them. So state and trait, that's the first thing. I often like the dehabituator. If I'm having a day, it's like, and, I don't drink alcohol. I don't do weed. I don't do psychedelics anymore. This is an incredibly boring guy. It's like, God, man, what can I do? So, okay, help right now. So it's just great. I mean, and obviously, like yourself, you found out that the dehabituators, because the beta dehabituator, boy, okay, I feel better. So help right now, in a world that can be a shit show of challenges and stress, having quick access to quick relief that is safe and not harmful, and actually kind of builds towards an increased ability. I've meditated my whole life. Why don't I just sit down and meditate? Well, I do. It's like I do breathe. It's like, what? Just give me a martini or something. Well, I just don't do that. So sometimes the simple best, is okay, hit it, bam. Like, oh, that's better. So
Yeah.
state to trait, depending what you want to go. This is exercise. Our brain is physical. Understand that a little bit of physical exercise every day, and guess what? Somatically, you're going to feel better. It's like, well, the brain is physical. It's the same stuff. That's why I sometimes call the VIZR brain exercise disguised as entertainment. If you never do back bends, I don't do back bends. If you never do back bends and you're in the car and you drop your keys in the back seat, it's like, and you have to kind of bend back to pick up the keys. It's not easy. Why? Because I never do them. So with the brain, to juice the brain is not only short term, but long term to your benefit. So if you drop your keys mentally, you can pick them up.
Yeah.
This is the thing, that the ability for I'll say brain in this case, it's like a concept, right? The ability of our brain to change when change is required is at the core of optimum well-being.
Yeah. No, and I
I
mean,
mean,
I see this, city after city and country after country. I mean, the amount of, anxiety and depression
yeah,
and
yeah,
just thoughts, suicidal thoughts. And I mean,
yeah, yeah.
it's really we're living in such a fast-paced life that we need a fast-paced
Mm,
solutions. And I feel like that's what this provides. But also, I always use this technology with, training. It's like where you put your
yeah,
intention and energy, then that's
Yeah.
what grows. And for me, in my journey, without fixing my brain and or mind,
Mhm.
like you say, it really was the chemistry, but it was also the states, the thoughts, the clutter.
Yeah.
And so so now from seeing the VIZR, right? So we've got a sleep cycle, because I think sleep
Yep.
is a huge problem, and there's tons of
Yeah.
different sleeping aid type recordings. There
Yep.
is brain training, right? So in general,
Yep.
to actually generate new neuroplasticity.
Yep.
Then there is the dehabituation, right?
Yep.
Or altered states. And then the latest, which is I think the most exciting for the psychedelic community, is
Oh yeah, that one. Yeah.
is the microdose. Tell us more
Yeah.
about that.
Okay, drug-free microdosing. I have a position that our brain is naturally psychedelic. And what I mean by that is our brain, as I mentioned already, has a very broad spectrum of natural states. And every circadian cycle, in the interview I did with Luis Luna, amazing man, psychedelic patriarch, although he refuses to accept that, is that every night when we dream, we all become shamans. So that the elasticity of being able to move in and out of these creative states is the health of change. And the idea that to me, all psychedelic compounds are psychoactive agents, but not all psychoactive agents are psychedelic compounds. Stan Grof, early LSD researcher, because of legality at that point in time, developed his holotropic breathing. And why? Because he could either create the same or approximate the same states using breathing techniques combined with a certain psychology that he was getting from the acid, from the LSD. So I believe that there's a very broad range of psychoactive agents that enliven or access this natural functionality in the brain that we usually call altered states or non-ordinary states, or if you're using compound, tripping, whatever. So that's my basis, that there are lots of ways of doing it, thermally, exercise, breathing, meditation, light, sound. So, okay, I said, well, fine. If this is true, and I do believe it's true, and there's enough evidence to support the belief, is there a way of stimulating slow, incremental neuroplastic change in the brain? Because that's what I think microdosing does. I wrote an article in Biohackers Magazine last year or so. Is brain priming a unique form of microdosing? Yeah. If you think of microdosing not in terms of the compound, but that if you apply low-level stressors to the brain regularly over time, it's going to induce a slow, predictable increase in neuroplastic change. It's like if you do a little bit of stretching, a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, you can't stretch your hamstrings in one day. I wouldn't recommend you trying.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, look, what's the principle here? If microdosing is actually a way of gently inducing incremental neuroplastic change over time, fine, I'll just use a different psychoactive agent to stimulate the same neurological process. And if a person wants to stack it, going back to Stamets, instead of stacking the compound with lion's mane and niacin, how about stacking the compound with well-crafted light and sound? So, I approach these things. I love working from the point of principle because there are not that many principles in life. So the principle is a certain degree of stimulation, a low-level stress, what's called a U stress, EU, instead of distress, U stress, applying incremental U stressors regularly and periodically over time is going to create in the brain a reaction, and that reaction is slow, adaptive neuroplastic change. And so I did that and crafted sessions that are more theme-based, which you don't get in normal microdosing. So there are frequency vectors that point you in a certain direction. It's a benefit. And also one of the cool things is that, people that microdose, especially if they've had a history of using higher doses, like, I don't really feel anything. Well, I know that's the whole point of a microdose, right? But there's research in this going back to the 50s. At that time, they called it subclinical dosing with mescaline. But so the tendency is, well, maybe I'm doing a little bit more than a microdose. I want to feel like a little bit high, just a little bit good. Why? Because there's no evident reward. Supposedly a signpost of maturity is delayed gratification. Well, in microdosing, for a lot of people, it's like, this is a lot of delay in this in this reward, dude. They want to feel something. So the attraction of the drug-free microdosing with the VIZR is that you get a reward every time that you do your session. So it helps you, because we have to have a reason. Compliance is, if you do something that's good for you, I'm going to eat kale and take cordyceps supplements, but you don't really feel any change. It's like, well, I'm doing it. Why? Because it's good for me. But if you can have an instant reward, it's like, I don't really know if it's good for me or not, but I really like it. So compliance. Yeah.
And this is when the uncompliant of me comes in, and I start going deep into DMT release type breath work with the light, and then it becomes a whole nother avenue, which I don't recommend just before you have a solid, foundation.
Yeah, that's another neighborhood. You don't want to go into the neighborhood unless you've got friends.
Yes, absolutely. No, that's fantastic.
Okay.
No, so I think, well, one thing I do want to touch on is neuroplasticity. We've talked about it now, a couple times. For those that don't know what it means and also why is it important, that would be an amazing neuroplasticity 101.
Okay, 101, like pre-101. Our medical science made a massive mistake. They taught up until rather recently that the change period, what's called the critical period, is only in childhood up until teenage years. And then the adult brain really is resistant to change after that. The old thing they used to say is that you only have so many neurons, and when they die, they don't come back. That was medical science at a neurological level. It's like, oh, wait a minute. That's wrong. So the evidence is that adaptive processes, learning, experiences can still affect the adult brain to change, not just functionally, but structurally. You can not only create new synaptic patterns for function, you can actually grow new brain nerves. Now, not everywhere equally. However, the fact is that idea was wrong. This one is right. Now, you can synthesize that down to whatever the state of your brain today. With proper methods, it can be better tomorrow. So neuroplastic doesn't mean, this doesn't mean that. Plastic, it's a Greek word, and it goes along with elastic. Elastic and plastic are from the Greek language. Elastic means start A, pull to B, take the force away, B returns to A, like an elastic band. Plastic, start with A, pull it to B, release the force, but it doesn't go all the way back. Some amount has changed, and that change is going to stay. And like when you stretch a muscle, actually you're mostly stretching fascia. When you stretch it, it doesn't go all the way back to where it was. You get somewhere between a 1% to 3% elongation. You say, well, 1%. Yeah, but if you do it regularly, guess what? That fascia, in a plastic way, stays in this new form. So we can do that with our brain. Our brain, you can kind of stretch your brain, or if you want to think of it in like lifting weights, start with 20 kilos, then you got 21, then you got 22, then you got 30. So our brain can change functionally and structurally to our advantage. The trick is the method has to be one that the brain can respond to. So neuroplasticity, hey, only 8% of the world's population lives to be more than 65 years old.
Wow.
If you want to live a long life, raise your hand. Everybody's lifting and raising their hand pretty much. Hey, the odds, frankly, are against us. 26% of the world's population die before 15 years old.
Wow.
Okay, so a lot of us are living longer. Yay. Oh, wait a minute. Statistically, advanced countries, urbanized, industrialized countries, if you reach between 80 and 85, currently, the statistic is you have a 50-50 chance of dementia.
Wow.
Wow. Happy birthday. Flip a coin. Heads, you're cool. Heads, who are you? So, paying attention to what advances and maintains healthy, functional cognitive experiences, the brain stuff, is something that wisely I recommend we pay some attention to. It's like people realize with aging, it's not just, like what is fit meaning? Well, muscles and, strength and maybe flexibility. As you get older and older, you realize, well, wait a minute, organ health is actually more important than, the skeletal, musculoskeletal health. Organs.
Yeah, or
And
then
then
you
if
get
you go,
into brain. Yeah, I was gonna.
and then it's like, oh, wait a minute. It's very funny how we think this is my head, this is my body. That kind of weird reductionist divisionism of things where, if you want to see a human brain, you're looking at it. It looks just like this.
Yeah.
You're looking at it right now. I don't have to cut my head open and take, that sponge and point it at you. This is the brain. So to me, other than the divine and concepts of enlightenment or awareness and everything like that, which, by the way, that's my zone. But if you don't go there, what can you do to have the best experience? I think we live in an age of angst. I think that right now, our social philosophy, our lifestyles, we negate the circadian cycle, and everything is, it's just matter and dead, and you're going to die. This kind of a nihilistic view where life has no inherent meaning or purpose. Life is actually absurd. God is dead. Now, what else can you do to cheer yourself up after that? So right now, in our Western culture, I think we are roaming around with something gnawing in the pit of our stomach or soul, which is a kind of an angst or a dread. And we do so many things, even spiritual shit. We do so many things to avoid that feeling. What Trungpa called spiritual materialism. Right there is, why is there life? Am I alive? Now what?
Yeah.
Now what?
Put your freaking path into your own hands, and I think that's the empowerment, right? Like taking this education, this science, these experiences, and reverse engineer so you can live the best to your point of what you know today.
Yeah, there's so many ways to think about it, but the fact is that I think it's the number one challenge to well-being is, does life really have a meaning and purpose, and am I fulfilling that meaning and purpose, or am I just like doing stuff because I'd really rather avoid the fact that, I think a lot of us feel that there's a kind of a monster chasing us. There's something like we're trying to avoid. There's a monster chasing us. And, I won't tell my own story, but it's the same as everybody else. And then, one day it's like, oh, wait a minute. I turn around, I'm going to face the monster. I'm going to attack that attacker. Like even in my dreams, like, I'd scream and wake myself up. What are you doing? That monster and I realize, oh, wait a minute. That's not a monster. That's just the truth. I think the truth chases us all the time.
Yes.
All the time. All the time. Yeah.
I love this because you are exactly about what you have your head straight. Let's put it this way, because
why does my neck hurt then?
I think so, so many people, they, like we just keep on worrying about all these different things. And, at the end of the day, it's quite simple and yet so complicated. And I think what I love about what you're doing is just, keeping it real and, not knowing it, right? I mean, who knows until we know? And I think that's an amazing story. And thank you so much for bringing all of
I'm
your
not going to
wisdom.
stop. I want to say one more thing.
Go ahead.
Our brain is actually capable of solving this problem. It's not like I can't do. Yes, we can. That we call them altered states, we call them all kinds of weird things, but our brain has the capacity to step aside from logical, reductional, sequential thinking, because that's a very, 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 very good tool. But our brain can let go of that and reside for periods of time in a totally different perspective of consciousness. And that spending time there, however you get there, because the brain doesn't really care. It's willing to go if the psychoactive agent is applied. Then you can return to your logical, ordinary mind, it's oftentimes called. And guess what? It hasn't changed the facts of life, but it's changed your feeling about the facts. That's really important. It doesn't change, it's not like magical thinking where now I'm rich, all this law of attraction, all this stuff, well, God wants me to be affluent. Okay, I don't kind of groove with that. But right now, there are the facts of your life. Like the people that are, at the point of a terminal cancer, guess what? You're going to die. Your body, whatever you think about it, whatever philosophy you have, that body's going to finish pretty soon. That's a fact. And then if a person is able to, however it's generated, a religious experience, doesn't much matter, acid, breathing, light, doesn't matter. If your brain goes there, then returning to, oh yeah, I'm going to die, guess what? My feeling about the facts have changed. That is like huge, because what we keep on thinking is that we have to manipulate the facts to get them to be just the way we want and stay that way, then we're going to be relieved. So am I constantly manipulating what? To get the facts to correspond to what I want. Well, there's this other thing called your feeling about the facts. And the fact is that there are two ways this can go. And one camp doesn't really appreciate the other. I'll call one, you go vertical. The feelings, the experiences you have in non-ordinary states, by breathing or whatever, VIZR, breathing, put them together, that there's a vertical movement towards what we'll call mysticism. That's the word I'll use for it. A series of dimensional transcendent experiences. And those experiences allow you to change your feeling about the facts. But there's another one that we have to understand. There's a horizontal transcendence. There isn't just vertical transcendence. There's horizontal transcendence. I won't call it mysticism, I'll call it naturalism. It's a lot more kind of a Zen, Thoreau, Emerson kind of thing, where the common experiences that seemed mundane now become magical. That when you're in nature, you finally get it. When you're holding your baby in your arms, you get it. So it is a horizontal transcendence of the facts, not necessarily a vertical mystical transcendence. They both work. They get you to the same place. It's cool. You don't have to be a yogic mystic, flying dimensionally with dakinis. You can be the Thoreau, Zen, Gary Snyder person that is sitting at the seashore and is just blown away by the way the waves keep on coming. So our brains right now, I think we're like biased against, we're getting too psychedelic, too pointing up at the mystical too much, because for some personalities, it doesn't roll that way.
Mm-hmm.
And even a materialist that says, when I died, that's the end of it. Cool. We can transform this short-term thing called your life into an enchanted, magical, deeply satisfying, enriched experience. You don't have to go to the Himalayas, dude. You know, Yellowstone is totally fine. Totally fine. So I think right now we're tilting too much towards a psychedelic mystical interpretation of the relief of angst, you know, meaning and purpose. Yeah, cool. You can have a job, you can have a family, you can have kids, and it can all be fine. But you've got to spend some time in the part of your mind, brain, where you're going to generate a different perspective. You're going to have different feelings about the facts. So it doesn't mean I got to leave my job, I'm going to leave my family, I'm going to go and, you know, do dark retreats for Pavel, you know, for like next 3 years. I'm going hardcore here. You know, I'm going to empty my bank account. I'm going to trust in the Lord. All these kinds of things. Yeah, that's one way. Not very practical for most people, right? So that's what to me, let's be aware that you can go vertical or you can go horizontal, or you have a real nice graphic combination of the two.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can be like a Vajrayana Tibetan Buddhist or a Zen Buddhist. The Zen is like, strip the shit down. Don't talk to me about chakras and, you know, dimensions and domains and all these things. I don't really give a shit. You know, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. That's where it's at.
Yes, the
So I don't know.
embodiment.
Yeah, you know, so
Well, you know,
yeah, be
my
careful with it. Yeah.
my big
Oh,
takeaway
yeah,
is, I mean, you know, I asked you about a why at the
yeah.
beginning, and you
I don't know.
you led with the why the entire time, and I think that's the deeper meaning behind everything. And this is, you know, what I'm
Yeah.
about. I mean, it's like, you know, this is all an acceleration, but at the end of the day, it's like it goes way deeper. And I think if we don't question and start looking at the truth, we're just going to be
Mm-hmm.
running away our whole life. And
Whole
so
life. Yeah.
this game is over, and I think, again, I'm so
Yeah.
grateful that you know came here, that we're in this magical partnership together. And
Yeah.
also for everybody, you know, try this out. I mean, we've got 30 days of complete trial of, so that way you can
Mm-hmm.
test this, use this. The best way
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
do it is embody it. I mean, give it
Yeah.
a fair try. Do, you know, 12 sessions in a month. That's kind of, I've been saying, it's like a good solid start if you can commit
Yeah. Cool.
every single
Cool.
day.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah.
And connect with us. We have a team that can help you properly utilize it,
Mm.
learn about it, and that's what we're here for. We're here to share what
Mm-hmm.
works, and it's up to you how far you're going to take it.
All right. Little last minute of advice. If you're a first-time user and you don't have experiences in non-ordinary states, if you've not done serious, you know, breath work, or you've not done psychedelics, or you've not done, you know, thermal stuff, if you're pretty much an average person that is trying to figure things out and you have the VIZR, the experience at first can be destabilizing because you've never seen the inside of your head light up with colors and geometrics and, you know, feeling and like energy shifts and states. People say like it's an instant out of body. You know, tiptoe into the shallow end of the pool, but that's the water. You know, that's where you're going to be. And after a while, guess what? You know, you'll go into the deep end and have a good swim. Yeah.
Thank you all so
Thank
much,
you, man.
and excited to connect again.